Hello! In this video we will demo a full deployment of a standalone XDM server. We will use the new built-in workflow of the Configuration Manager to configure the XDM server. We will run several tests to verify that our configuration is valid before we launch the deployment process. The second part of the video will highlight specific configuration elements such as XDM server load and the option to migrate a PostgreSQL dump that was created using previous DMS release. Let's start by launching the Configuration Manager. I will use the workflow on the left to guide me through the steps necessary to configure and deploy the XDM server. For this demo, my strategy will be advanced. This will allow me to configure more resources and share with you more information within this video. Notice that the workflow dynamically changes based on the strategy selected. Please note that we also have a dedicated video for Restore from Backup available for you. I will click Next to move on. This will be the recurring action to enable the next step within the workflow. This is the server configuration. On the left, I have a list of resources, and by selecting each one of them, I should be able to review the settings and modify each one of them. I can modify the default name of the XDM server name. If I'm not sure what fully qualified domain name is, I can check on the right for an answer that will help me better understand how to determine the fully qualified domain name. Once I have entered the FQDN, I can click to check it. Under XDM server directories, I can modify the default directories that the XDM server will use. Allow me to use a fake Z drive that does not exist just to emphasize the option that you have to immediately check the disk space. But even if you ignore it, our pre-deploy test will catch this issue later in the process. On the deployment options, I can learn more about the user that will run the XDM server. Please notice that the question and answers are dynamically changed according to the content that you're working on. I will keep the configuration of the default embedded database. For those using Oracle Database or SSL, we dedicated videos specifically for those settings. Let's also keep the target directory of the vault. Once I defined LDAP, I have the option to check it, and in a similar way I can define SMTP and test it as well. Since I installed both XDM design services and XDM library services, I have a separate tab for each one of the application services so that I could configure them. I will stay with the defaults. Please notice the icon that indicates a reminder to save the changes. It will also appear on each resource that was modified but not yet saved so that I could review the modifications once again. If I forget to save and continue to the next step, which is pre-deployment tests of the setup, I will get a notification to save the pending configuration, so the test will be based on the modified values. Now that I saved, I can run the tests. If there are errors, those will be shown first and will prevent me from deploying the XDM server. I will fix the errors, save, and run the pre-deployment tests again. Warnings should be taken into consideration, but will not prevent me from executing the deployment. Looks like I'm ready to start with the deployment of the XDM server. I can monitor the progress of the deployment. Once done, I get the client access information, which I can share with my clients, or I can use by myself to finish the configuration of LDAP. I would like to highlight few resource configurations. An important parameter that will influence the performance of the XDM server is the XDM server load. Please learn carefully what concurrent client applications are by using the documentation provided, and make sure you have a very good estimation for these settings. The test will help you verify that the host hardware of the XDM server is sufficient for the value that you defined. Do not make it too high because the hardware may not be sufficient, but on the same time, if you set it too low, it might impact the performance for the clients. Let's have a look on the XDM library services under Advanced Settings. I would like to draw your attention and make sure you are familiar with the option to migrate legacy library data. If you're using older version of TMS with a PostgreSQL database and you would like to migrate your library data into XDM server, it can be done. Once you have a dump of the PostgreSQL database, you can point to this file, and during the deployment of the XDM server, it will migrate your existing data and will allow you to use it. Note that Oracle customers should not use this option, but will have to migrate their Oracle database manually. Please refer to our user's guide for more details. In this video, we demonstrated a full workflow of XDM server deployment. We used the workflow to configure, test, and deploy the XDM server. The second part of the video was dedicated to highlight specific resource configurations.